Hello everyone, this is Wenjie Chao. In today's video, let's continue talking about the tripods. Ever since the last video where I compared the PD tripod with the Heipi tripod, people suggest that I might compare more tripods, so I did. I carefully select those 5 tripods. The first tripod is RRS Ascend 14. This tripod might appear much longer than the rest tripod. The reason is because I borrowed this from a friend and he only has a long version. The actual version I want to compare is a compact version, which is 7 centimeters shorter than this one. So that's why I put a block here, which is 7 meters thick. If you want to compare the next tallest tripod, Heipi, with the RRS, you just put on the block, and here is the actual height difference of these two tripods. So yes, this one is the tallest among all other tripods, but it's not as much. The next one is a PD tripod, and the third one is a Heipi tripod. I compared these two tripods last time. Then I added this Ulanzi Zero wide tripod as well as the Marsace XT-15 tripods here. Those tripods are lightweight, compact. Even though they're not as stable as the big heavy tripods, those are the tripods you are willing to carry when you have to hike a long distance or when you travel in the city. While preparing the video, I realized one thing, that compare 2 tripods is much easier, and compare 5 tripods, totally different story. That's why I decided to come up with a scoring system or a rating system for the tripods. In the first part of the video, I will compare from 5 different areas of those tripods and come up with a score for each area. I'll try to be fair, will not involve my own opinions in the first part. But when we make a purchase decision, we not just look at numbers. We also have our own personal preference as well as the way or the environment that we will use those tripods. So I will cover those in the second part of the video. Then finally, I will give my purchase advice for those tripods. With that being said, let's get started. For the price of the tripod, the most expensive one is this RRS Ascend 14. This is probably the most expensive travel tripod you can buy. This one will cost $1,500. The next is PD tripod. The retail price will be $649, and you probably can get it Black Friday at $550. Then the Heipi tripod, the retail price will be $399, and right now you can still get in Indiegogo at $319 or $339. Then Ulanzi tripod, the retail price will be $349, but most likely you can get it less than $300 to use some coupon or referral code. Then for the Marsace, you can definitely get this one less than $200. And here is the score I will give to the price. It will be a score from 1 to 5, where 3 is average or up to my expectation. So in terms of portability, I think I select those tripods. They are all very lightweight and compact. The heaviest one here is RRS, which is less than 1.5 kilogram. The lightest one is the Marsace, which only has 1 kilogram. They're also very short. This one is shortest. Folded length for this one is only 39.3 centimeters. Then the RRS, the tallest of all 5, which only has 47 centimeters, which is not that tall either. Then we're talking about the circumference. The thickest circumference is this one, has 22.5 centimeters, and the Heipi tripod has the thinnest circumference, which only has 18.5. So not only that, if you look at this Heipi tripod, you can even take this ball head off just by twisting. And look at how small it is now. For the other tripod, you can also take the ball head off. It just takes some time or use some tools to do that. This is the only one that you can easily take it out. And with this size, you can easily store them in your luggage or backpack or even shoulder bag if you want. That's why I think those 4 tripods all have excellent portability. So I'll give them a score of 5 in terms of portability. Then for this one, even though not the lightest, not the thinnest, not the shortest, I'll still give it 3 points because it still meets my expectation in terms of travel tripods. Here's the score in terms of portability for those tripods. Then for the max node or the node capacity of the tripod, each tripod actually has a node capacity rating in their spec. But those ratings are kind of hard to compare because they all have different standards. They measure them differently. So in my test, I will use the same way to test all 5 tripods. So what I did is I found a plate like this, which is 30 centimeters long. And I put a marker here, which indicating the center where I'm gonna mount to the ball head. Then here I have a hook. I will use this luggage scale that you can easily buy from Amazon or any other stores. You just hook it over here. Then I just drag it and I will take the reading from here. So the distance from the center of the ball head to the hook is 25 millimeters. So as long as the distance is 25 millimeters, you can take the reading yourself and compare with those tripod over here. I'll show you here, use a PD tripod. I mounted here, and where is aligned perfect at the center of the ball head. So if the ball head requires to raise the center column, you do that. Then you tighten the ball head as much as you can, but don't use any tools or anything to tighten it up. Just use a hand. That's to simulate in your real world usage. Then you just hook it. Then you just drag. While dragging, you will read a number over here. Pay attention to the numbers here. And before the ball head is moved, read the number and write it down. So just like this. When you're dragging, and eventually the ball head will move. Look at it. Now it's moved. I'll take the reading from here. So I will not show that to you for all the tripod, but here's what I did of all of them. And then over here, you can see the numbers. The first one is actually this Ulanzi common tripod. It only can drag up to 2.7 kilograms. The rest can all drag above 3.5 kilograms. So I have to say those numbers are very impressive, because think about it, this has a very long distance over here. Just think of it as a level. So everything is magnified because of this long distance over here. So I gave a rating of 4 in terms of max node for the Ulanzi common tripod. For the rest, I'll give a rating of 5. Now let's take a look at stability of the tripod. We're going to compare the leg diameters of those tripods. We will see each section because they're all different. So the only thing I need to mention is the PD tripod, where it has a irregular shape of the legs. So here, this diameter is very thin, and on this direction, it's thicker. So in order to come up with one number so that I can compare with the wrist tripod, what I did is I times the diameter of 2 different directions together, then use the square root of that to get one number. So in that case, the thickest one is the PD tripod. The first section had the diameter of 29 millimeters. Then the RRS, then the Heipi, Ulanzi, and Marsace. That's order. But when we come to the last section, where the RRS only has 4 sections, so this last section here is 16.4, but if you use the same decreasing rate, then the last section will be 12.4. In which case, it's very thin. I think according to RRS standard, that's not acceptable. That's why they decide only to do the 4-section tripod. Definitely will help the stability of the tripod a lot, but at the same time, the folded length is not good. So that's RRS decision, of course. Then if we don't look at the RRS tripod, for the wrist tripod, the last section, the thickest one is this Heipi tripod. It has 14 millimeters. Then is the Marsace has 13 millimeters. Then the Ulanzi one has 11.7 millimeters. The last one is the PD, has only 11.1 millimeters. So that's really thin. That's why when I use PD tripod myself in the past 2-3 years, I barely use this last section. It just looks way too thin to me. On the other hand, the Heipi has 14 millimeters, which is totally acceptable for the last section of the tripod. So you may wonder why PD start with the thickest, the first section, and end up with the thinnest last section. The reason is because it decreased too fast. For each section, it decreased almost 4.7 millimeters per section. On the other hand, the Heipi tripod decreasing by only 3 millimeters per section. The RRS decreasing by 4 millimeters. So up to the third section, these 3 tripods are actually almost the same, even though the starting point is totally different. So you may wonder why Heipi tripod decreased only by 3 and RRS still decreasing by 4. Is that because the wall thickness is thinner for the Heipi tripod? The answer is no. The leg wall thickness of the RRS tripod is 1 millimeter for the first 3 sections, and the last one is about 1.2 millimeter thickness. Then for the Heipi tripod, the first 4 sections, the wall thickness is 1 millimeter as well. In the last section, the wall thickness is 1.25 millimeters. So they are pretty much the same in terms of the wall thickness. The extra 1 millimeter actually coming from something called anti-twist sleeves. So let me open this to explain to you what it is. If you drag it out, you can see here it attached 2 parts, which is called anti-twist sleeves. So let's say if I don't have this, I twist it on. So notice one thing, you can twist. You can twist it freely here. The second thing, you can just drag it out. So the only purpose of this anti-twist sleeve is for this purpose. The thickness of this RRS sleeves is almost 1 millimeters. So together will be 2. Then the wall thickness is also 2. That's together is 4 millimeters. Then for the Heipi tripod, the sleeve thickness is 0.5 millimeters. Together is 1. Then plus 1 millimeter for the wall. 2 of them together is 3 millimeters. That's why it saves the extra millimeter. Do I really care about thickness of these sleeves? I don't really. I think that's a good move for a Heipi tripod because that makes the notch section of the Heipi tripod much usable than the rest of the tripods. And from the chart below, you can see different colors of the leg thickness, and you can see at the beginning the RRS and the PD are in green color, but at the end it's not green anymore. And the Heipi was beginning with the orange color and end up with a green color at the last section. For this part of the video, I'm just going to explain that to you why it happens that way. Next, let's talk about stability when the central column is raised. Among 5 tripods, Heipi tripod is only one that has a 3-pillar central column. We can tell immediately that this design will definitely increase the stability of the central column. Then the RRS and Marsace have a thicker central column. The PD and the Ulanzi have a thinner center column. Well, this actually is a choice. If you got a thinner center column, the overall circumference of the tripod will be thinner. Then these 2 tripods have a thicker center column, then the circumference of this tripod is thicker. So as a user, you have to make a choice here. You want a thicker central column or you want a thinner circumference. But for the Heipi tripod, you don't need to choose. You got a very thick center column, and you also got a very thin circumference. Thank you for this creative 3-pillar column design. Our instinct tells us using the central column will decrease the stability of the tripod, and this 3-pillar central column design will help the stability, but we need a number to prove that. So I'll introduce my next stability test called the damping test. Whenever the tripod hit by force, it will start to vibrate. Doesn't matter where the force is coming from. It could be from the wind that blowing into the tripod. It could be you touch the camera by accident or intentionally. Or it could be the mirror box vibration if you use a DSLR. For the vibration, there are 2 attributes that are important for us as a photographer. The first is the magnitude of the vibration. The second, how long does it take for the vibration to die out? I refer you to a website called thecentercolumn.com where they started a bunch of tripods and tested and get 2 results out. The first is stiffness of the tripod, which determines the magnitude of the vibration. The second is the damping, which determines how long it's going to take for the vibration to die out. This is a test environment. I can do the same thing here, but that's not my point. My point here is to come up with a testing solution so that everyone can do the same test, so that we can compare them side by side. So here is a testing environment that's set up for the damping test. Everything here is self-made and you can easily make it yourself to reproduce the result I will show in this video. Here's the tripod for the light. This way I can adjust up and down to match the height of the tripods. This is a plate that is 30 centimeters now so that I can extend it out. Then here is a slope of 45 degrees. If you don't have the slope, you can use any indication that can indicate the 45 degrees. That's good enough. Then here is a rope that connected to a tennis ball, and from here to center of the tennis ball is 80 centimeters. Then here I mount the camera lens just to simulate some weight on the tripod. So here I have a phone clamp that connected to the horseshoe connector of the camera. And here I open the app. It's called a Vibrometer that you can download for free from any app stores. So I just lift the tennis ball to over here, which is 45 degrees. Then I just let it go in a free fall. As long as you're on Earth, you will get the same force that touching the lens. Every time I will make sure it hit right here. Then I hold the tennis ball. And over here, I will see a wave that goes through the vibration that's starting to die out. I will study the waves later in my computer. So for each test, I will do 5 times. I will get rid of the longest one, I'll get rid of the shortest one, then keep the middle 3, then do an average, then come up with the number you see on the chart. And also for each tripod, I will test 3 different heights. Because the damping time is also related to the tripod height. So I test 3 different heights for all 5 tripods. The first is at 120 centimeters. From here to the ground is 120 centimeters. Then I do a test. Then I will raise the center column I do a lot of tests, but I don't raise all the way up because some tripod has much longer center column than other tripod. So I always raise 20 centimeters for all the tripod. No matter how long the center column is, always 20 centimeters. Then I do another test, which is a 140 centimeter test. Then I know the tripod to 80 centimeters. Typically, that's a height when you use the first 3 sections of the tripod legs. Then I do another test. So 3 tests. Because 120 centimeters is the most likely case that we will use a tripod. So I give the weight of 2. For 80 and 140 centimeters, I give weight of 1. Then I use a weighted average of the 3 different tests and I get the final test result. And here you can see the numbers. So as you can see, RRS coming to the first place in both 80 centimeters and 120 centimeters. Then the Heipi tripod is coming at a close second place. That's not surprising because RRS is famous for their tripod stability here. Now if you take a look at the test result between 140 centimeters and 120 centimeters, you will see a big difference. That proves our instinct. The user central column will decrease the stability of a tripod by at least 2 times. But user's 3 pillar central column design as Heipi did will still decrease stability, but it's not as much, only 1.5 times worse than not using central column. So I basically use this test to prove what I just said. The one point that's very interesting about the Marsace tripod is most other tripods in the 80 centimeter and 120 centimeter damping test, the result is always better at 80 centimeters. But the Marsace is opposite. It actually has a worse result for the 80 centimeters. I guess the reason is because it's just too light. So whenever tennis ball hit the camera, the whole tripod probably moved a little bit. I think that's a downside of a tripod being too light. So here is the score for the stability of the tripods. I'll give 5 points to RRS tripod due to its 4-section design, good quality tripod legs, and overall the good damping test result. The next one is Heipi tripod. I give it 4 points because it has thickest notch section of the legs, the great design of the central column, as well as the excellent result from the damping test. Then I'll give 3 points for both PD and the Ulanzi tripod. They give 2 points for the Marsace. All the tripod has the same component, for example, the locking platform, the ball head, the center column, the legs, and the leg feet. I compare those 5 components for all the tripod. I come up with 20 features, as you can see here. If the tripod doesn't have the feature, I will give it 0 point. If the tripod has a feature and is very easy to use, I will give it 1 point. If tripod has a feature but not easy to use or all have some kind of defects, then I give half points. Then I give the weight for every feature, get a weighted average. Then times 5, that'll be the score for the features for each tripod. Here you can see all the scores I gave for every tripod regarding those 20 features. It will take some time for me to go through every single one of it, so I will just select some of them and I talk about it. But if you have any question about any score over here, feel free to ask me in the comments. I will respond to you and why I gave that score. The correct way to implement ball resistance is through a separate knob like this BH40. This is the main knob that controls the lock of the ball head. There are a lot of knobs over here. You can tune that to determine how tight the ball will be if the main knob is loose. This is useful when you use some heavy lens so that you don't need to hold the camera all the time. Then after adjust the composition, you can use the main knob to lock it down. All 5 tripod over here doesn't have a separate ball resistance knob, but the Heipi and the PD still manage to get the same function by adjusting the main knob. I'll show you how that works. To demo that, I will use a big lens so that you can see the tension level over here. So right now, if I put the knob down, this is completely loose. It will just fail if I don't use my hand to hold it. And if I put it somewhere halfway, like for example right here, it's not fully locked yet, then I can move my camera to anywhere. You will position right there when your hand stop. This is very useful when you adjust composition, so you don't need to hold your hand all the time on the camera. Once you decide the composition, you just push in to completely lock it. Same thing you can do with the PD one. So this is completely loose, then this is completely tight. This ring lock has a large distance you can move around. That's why if you move somewhere in between, you can have the same resistance feeling. You will stop right there. Then you can completely lock it. So the conclusion is the Heipi tripod can do this ball resistance mainly because they have a very big ball head. Then the PD tripod can have this ball resistance because this ring lock has a large moving distance, so that both tripods can adjust the ball resistance just fine. All other tripods have very small ball head, and the moving distance of the lock is not that large. That's why it's kind of hard to do the same thing as these two ball heads can do. Let's look at the panning of the ball head. The PD trap doesn't have any panning features, that gives it 0 point. The Heipi tripod, even though it has a panning, but the panning based on the bottom of the ball head. You have to adjust the tripod legs to make it level, which is harder to do than adjust the panning platform on the top. Next, I'm talking about the locking mechanism of the legs. I give half point for the Marsace tripod for the locking mechanism. This is the only one that uses a twist leg locking mechanism. So here's how it works. You just twist the leg feet. When you hear 4 clicks, all the 4 sections of the legs is unlocked, and you just drag it out like that. If you want to lock it up, just twist it and it's locked. It seems to be very easy to deploy, but if you try to extend halfway, that'll be a problem. Let's say I just want to use the first 2 sections of the leg. Because as a landscape photographer, we don't always use the full height. It depends on the foreground we're shooting. Sometimes we're just shooting from very low angle where we're going to use just the first 2 sections. So in order to use the first 2 sections, you still have to twist it 4 times because the first click will open the last section of the leg. So in order to open the first 2 sections, you have to fully unlock all sections. Then you extend it out. Then you lock the first section, lock the second section, then collapse the last 2 sections, then lock again. That's how you're gonna use if you just want to use the first 2 sections. Let's say you're shooting, then you realize you need to extend one more section, then you still have to unlock both sections, lock the fourth one, then close the last one, then lock it again. As you can see, it's not that easy to use at all. I would rather use a flip lock or a twist lock in this kind of situation. That's why I take half point away for this Marsace regarding the locking mechanism. For the vertical orientation, all the ball head here has some kind of drop latch you can drop in to do the vertical shot. Of course, if you use L plate, it will be much easier without this problem. But this just to show you, if you don't use an L plate and you try to drop the camera like this to do the vertical shot, if you're just shooting horizontally, that's fine. But if you try to moving up or moving down, that'll be a problem. Let's see if I try to move up and here, because they have 3 stoppers over here, which touch the central column. This is the highest you can move. Same thing if you try to move down, and this is the lowest you can move. If you try to higher or lower than this, the only way you can do is you move to the other side. But you can't just drop in like this, you have to move up more. And from here, then you can shoot in all the way to the top, like that. So this is the range you can do. I think the main problem is because from the platform itself, doesn't have any panning feature like the other ball head has. Even though this is not really a big problem for me because I'm never shooting up like that, but I can only give half point for this design because it will be a problem for many users. So here is the final score for the features for all 5 tripods. As you can see, the Heipi tripod definitely is a winner in this area because when I test tripod, I can see clearly this one has so many more features than other tripods. Then the RRS is the 2nd place, and PD and Ulanzi the tie on the 3rd place. And the Marsace is the last place. It's very obvious as well because when I test this, I can see they cut many features simply because they want to cut the cost. Now we have the score from 5 different areas for all 5 tripods. Let's take a look. If I give the same weight for all 5 areas, here is the final score. And here's the ranking. Number 1, Heipi tripod. Number 2, Marsace. Number 3, Ulanzi. Number 4, PD. And number 5, RRS. I think this ranking is probably a surprise to many people. Well, how could a less than $200 tripod compete with a tripod that is $1,500? Well, that's exactly why, because the price played a very significant role in the final ranking. If we put the 0 as a weight for the price, and the result will be quite different. Here's the score without considering the price. Number 1 is still Heipi tripod, and number 2 now is RRS, and number 3 is PD. This ranking will be just about the product itself, not considering price. But of course, when you purchase something, you will definitely consider the price. So finally, the portability probably is more important, but under the same portability, the stability is probably the 2nd most important factors you should consider when you buy a tripod. That's why I want to pump the weight of stability from 1 to 3. And let's take a look at the ranking here. Here's the score, and here's the ranking. Number 1 is still Heipi tripod, and number 2 is RRS. Number 3 is Ulanzi. Number 4 is PD, and number 5 is Marsace. Well, we just finished the first part of the video where I compare all 5 different areas. And now I will talk about some personal preference and the way we use tripod. When we purchase something, we not just purchase something because there are scores or the number or just the specs. We actually look at all different areas of the tripod. For example, the brand or the look. If you were to asking me which tripod looks the best, I will tell you the Heipi tripod is the best looking one. Next is PD, and next is Ulanzi. Generally speaking, I like RRS design, but I don't like this one in particular. So Marsace is just okay, especially if I compare this one with Heipi and PD, where the look of the design is so polished. This one definitely lacking in that area. But again, this is just my personal preference regarding the look. Everyone could have different opinion on that. There's nothing wrong about that. And that's why I didn't make this part of my scoring system. Another thing I care a lot is creativity. When I first see the PD tripod, it was released in Kickstarter back in 2019. I like the creativity of this tripod a lot. That's why I purchased it right away. Even though I know that the last section of the leg is very thin, I'm probably not gonna use that. I'm okay with it. I just like the creativity of this tripod. Same thing happened with the Heipi was released. I just love this 3-pillar central column. I like this ball head and the locking platform on the top. I like this flip block. It's a tripod with a lot of creativities. I think part of the reason I like creativity is because I also make product myself. I made a photo planning app called Planet Pro. If you're a user of the app, you will see what I mean. There are many features that only exist in Planet Pro. I cannot find it anywhere in other apps. That's why I like creativity, but I cannot push this idea to you guys. That's why in the scoring system, I didn't mention anything about the creativities of the tripod. Finally, you choose a product also depends the way you use the tripod. For example, if you're in an extremely cold environment. I know Heipi, they test the tripod in a negative 35 degrees Celsius. I know for a fact that the RRS can also run through extremely cold weather. And the PD tripod, on the other hand, is not so good when it's extremely cold for the locking platform. For these two tripods, I don't have any data, so I cannot do any fair judgment on that. Or how about near the ocean? I also know for a fact any tripod, if the tripod leg cannot be disassembled, then you shouldn't use that for ocean or seascape photography. For example, this Swiss tripod, none of the legs can be disassembled. Then the PD tripod and RRS tripod, you can disassemble the legs. So if you're using an ocean, you just disassemble them and make sure you clean everything, then put them back. That should work. Then how about the sandy environment? So for example, I used to use this panning platform from RRS, where this level release lock here. There is a big gap over here. One time when I using the sand dune, the sand got into this gap, and this level release become very difficult to use. So I end up give up this very expensive panning platform, and now I'm using a very cheap one. This one has a twist lock, and it also make a sand inside here, but screw lock is more reliable. It's not very sensitive to the sand, which work out better for me than this level release lock. So that's something you have to use before you can reach a conclusion. Again, I cannot do a fair judgment for those tripods either in a sandy environment. Now we are at the end of this video, and finally I'll give you my purchase advice of those 5 tripods. RRS Ascend 14. So I do not recommend this particular model to you guys. The main reason is because the central column, the ball head, and the price. I think part of the reason you can see from here, the ball here is just way too small. I think RRS tried to make this tripod compact and lightweight, but I think they overdid. My recommendation is to get the TFC-14 tripod, then buy another ball head, BH40 or BH30, or even this Heipi ball head, and go with that particular tripod. Total price will be much cheaper than this one, more lightweight, more compact, but not as tall, because this one with central column can get up to 150 centimeters. The TFC-40 tripod itself can only go up to 120 centimeters. But if you just use the tripod for travel purpose, that's good enough. So next, I will talk a PD and a Heipi tripod at the same time. Both tripods are my favorite tripod. These two tripods are great examples of a perfect design tripod should be. They are compact, they look great. Holding them in your hand, you just feel like they are both a piece of art. And both have their unique design, the irregular shape of the tube from this RRS, the clever design ball head over here, which is very compact. Over here on the Heipi, you got this tri-pillar center column design. This is the first time in the tripod history that a central column now is finally usable. Then the locking platform is the best locking platform. It's very easy to deploy, very easy to open. It will be faster than screw lock. It will be more reliable and compatible than the level release lock. Then the flip lock for the legs is completely new design here as well. And not only that, if you drag this out and put another ball head over here, it will become two separate tripods. As a landscape photographer and landscape photographer, I often use two cameras. One camera shooting time lapse, then I can use this tripod for that camera. So then for this one, it will be my main camera. I shooting panorama or single shots, use this tripod and another camera. So this combination works perfect for me. So if I want to hike a long distance, this is definitely the tripod that I will bring with me. And the price is only slightly over $300. Highly recommend this Heipi tripod. For the PD tripod, I really hope they can have a next generation of this particular model. I have been using this tripod for 3 years now. Space over here is not very optimized. They can definitely improve this so the reduction rate here is not so big. Then the last section of the tripod legs will not be so thin. I actually emailed PD asking, are they going to release the second version of this PD tripod? Looks like they're considering, but there are no concrete plan right now. But I certainly wish they can do that to create a second generation of tripod so the PD can really compete with Heipi tripod. At the moment, Heipi as a latecomer definitely wins in this competition. So next is the Ulanzi Zero tripod. I have a high anticipation for this tripod before I test it. The reason is I saw many YouTubers highly recommend this tripod. One YouTuber even compared the Ulanzi with the PD tripod and they said this one is better. My conclusion is actually the other way. I'll tell you why. The most significant problem of this tripod is these flip blocks over here. When I first got the tripod, all of them align properly. They're zigzagged, which means they didn't adjust properly. Not only that, all the tension of the flip block is not adjusted properly. Some are very tight and some are very loose. So when you use the forefinger at the same time and try to open that, sometimes you just miss one of them because that particular flip block is very tight. Well, that's fine because I can adjust the screws over here to make it loose. Well, I can do that and most people can do that. But what if one user accidentally adjusts screw to make it too loose? Even you lock this, the section will still collapse. That'll be a safety concern. So for any adjustment that will affect the safety of the camera, I think you shouldn't let the user to do it. I think it's fair to say that when this tripod released from the factory, well, those flip block tension should be adjusted properly. As a matter of fact, I don't even understand why they choose flip block. PD choose flip block because the tube is not circular, so they cannot use twist lock like the RRS did. Heipi choose flip block is because they want a very tight space between the legs. And look at the space over here, it's very tight. And if you use screw lock, you cannot have this tight space. You can take this RS for example. Look at how big the space between the legs. So both PD and Heipi choose flip block for a good reason. Then let's look at the Ulanzi tripod. First, the tube is circular, twist lock will work. Second, look at how big the gap between the legs. It's very big. It's probably be better if they just use the screw locks. I feel like Ulanzi did flip block simply because they want to mimic what the PD did. But I don't think that's a good idea. And even if you do it, please do it properly, not like this one. The second thing is this flip lock for the central column. When I first got the tripod, it was like this. I cannot push all the way in. Then I realized there is a screw over here I can adjust. So I adjust that one. Now I can push all the way in now. But the problem now is this become extremely tight. I have to push it open. Once it open, it will become completely loose. There's no resistance at all. Several times I tried to push it open, then because nothing stopped me, my finger just hit over here and that hurt. Now let's take a look at the RRS tripod. Here is the same flip block, and if you open it, look at it. It has tension when it's loose, and when you try to open it, it's not that hard to open either. So this is what I call a properly designed flip block, and the Ulanzi is not. So a lot of problem with this flip block as well. It is very tight at the beginning, and when you loose, it's become completely loose. So in comparison, the Marsace has the same flip block over here, but it's much better than the Ulanzi one. Well, Ulanzi is actually a good brand. I do have other products from them. Just for this tripod, it's not a good one. So lastly, let's talk about this Marsace XT-15 tripod. This tripod got second place in the ranking when all 5 areas have the same weight. I think the main reason is because the price is so cheap and it's so lightweight. I will not use this tripod for my main landscape tripod, but if I want to shooting vlog or some behind-the-scenes videos, this works perfectly fine for me. I probably will not recommend this particular model because I don't like central column anyway. I will recommend you to buy the version that without central column. It will be lighter, cheaper, and probably more compact than this one because you don't have the central column anymore. That would be definitely a good secondary tripod in case you need it. And so in summary, my recommendation is if your stability is your goal and you want a really reliable tripod, go get the RRS TFC-14 with a Heipi ball head. And if you want an all-around travel tripod, Heipi tripod is your choice. If you want a secondary tripod just for vlog or behind-the-scenes video purpose, go get a Marsace tripod that doesn't have a central column. That's the end of this video. Thank you for watching. See you next time.